Thank you for staying with us. And we will start our conversation on drug misuse and addiction. And joining us to do that is the newly elected president of the Pharmaceutical Society of Nigeria, Mazi Sam Uhuabonwa. It's good to have you on the program.
Good morning. Thank you, Kirian and my brother.
All right, Mazi Uhuabonwa, pleasure to have you with us in our studios today. We've always had you as a guest from some of our remote network centers in Port Harcourt, as well as Enugu. You are the latest president of the Pharmaceutical Society of Nigeria. What would you consider to be your most pressing item on your agenda as president?
The most pressing item on the agenda is to bring a new order to the drug and the pharmaceutical space. There's so much disorder which has resulted in abuse and misuse. Medicines are supposed to be control items, but they have become freely available, motor parks, in kiosks, intra-city buses, everywhere, in clubs, nightclubs, medicines, both controlled and uncontrolled, legitimate and illegitimate, they're all over the place. I think we need to rein this in, and so that we can get the pharmacist play his custodian role as the man who protects the patient and who protects him from the harmful effect of drugs. Because drugs, as you know, are two-edged swords. They can heal, they can harm. And that's why they decided to create the position of a pharmacist. Somebody said if there was none, we would have created one. A pharmacist is to protect the patient, serve as a buffer to make sure that anybody that takes drug gets the benefits, not the deleterious side of it. But when people are accessing drugs without the intervention of a pharmacist and from all kinds of sources, you are seeing the result. Many you do not see. The level of morbidity and mortality, destruction of human organs and systems by taking poisons, in quotes. It's just so much. We're seeing addiction, we're seeing misuse, we're seeing abuse, but there are many we do not see. And that is why I want to confront this, working with government, working with other stakeholders in the profession of healthcare to bring orderliness to the way we distribute drugs, to the way we consume them, to the way we manage them.
Well, you indeed have a great deal of job to do in that respect, because the preponderance of the abuse and misuse you're talking about is just there. But I want to ask you this. Now, we talk about drug misuse and drug addiction and drug abuse. What is the correlation between the three? And if there's a distinction, let us know.
There's a distinction. Misuse, if a drug is supposed to be used, let's say, let's give a paracetamol. You're supposed to take paracetamol 3 times a day for 1 week. When you go beyond that 1 week, you are misusing it. When, secondly, you just feel pain, you just go back to the drug, you're misusing it, Then also, when we now get to abuse, abuse is where you're now looking for the effect of what you call the side effect. You are supposed to take a drug to give you relief for pain, but it gives you some euphoria. It makes you lighthearted. It makes you forget your pain, your sorrow beyond pain. So rather than take the drug anymore for pain, you're taking it to give you the high. That is abuse. Addiction comes when, because of this abuse, you have now become dependent on the medicine. If you don't take it, you start yawning, you start being uncomfortable, and you start, sometimes having seizures and having all kinds of abnormal behavior. You are not dependent on the drug, so you have to go and take it. Like people who are dependent on alcohol. Some people are dependent on depressants, products that you must take before you sleep. That's now addiction. So misuse, abuse, and addiction, they are correlated in some way. And that is because you are now using the drug not for its intended purpose and not as prescribed by the doctor, as recommended by the manufacturer.
What factors have been isolated in drug misuse in Nigeria? And therefore, how tough is the task that you have assigned to yourself to help curb the misuse?
Well, there are a couple of factors. The first, from a pharmaceutical point of view, is access. People access medicines. Medicines are controlled items, even though there are those who regard as generally safe, and therefore the law allows you to procure them without a prescription. But that's for limited use. That's why when you see people that advertise, they say, after 2 days, see your doctor. So you're allowed to use certain medications to treat some early symptoms, but if you do not get relief. But we're in a system where people can then procure that that product for more than 2 days, for more than 2 weeks, for more than 1 year, and they continue to have access. So unbridled access is one. Number two is what I believe that the sources of these drugs, because if you have to get a drug through a pharmacy, for example, the pharmacy is going to ask you, what do you need this drug for? And ask for your prescription if it's a prescribed drug or the one he will recommend. But if you go to some kind of place, you go to a kiosk, you go to a moving truck, you go to an intra-city bus, the guy there is only seeing the commercial value of what he's selling. He has no understanding of the deleterious effect, the harmful effect, and even the limitations. He doesn't know that certain aspirin and paracetamol can help you deal with fever or headache, but you can't take them concurrently. There are circumstances you can't take them. The pharmacist will ask you to know the integrity of your gut. Do you have issues with ulcer, for example? Have you eaten? And so forth and so on. He needs to know the integrity of your system. And then they advises you on the duration. But this advice is lacking in most cases. So we believe that the way to deal with it is to insist that before anybody takes any medicines, he must get an advice of a pharmacist. So access, lack of advice, and thirdly is lack of control in terms of law. The law is not sufficiently robust enough to hem and bring drug consumption into proper perspective. And which is why I agree with you, there's a lot of work required. One of the major areas is law. Right now, we have a pharmacy law, which the National Assembly has worked on for a number of years to improve control and regulation. That will empower the Pharmacy Council of Nigeria to be able to have a greater control over everybody that touches medicine.
Yeah, well, but Mazi, Sam,
Yes.
let's take a look at this again. Some persons would say, in addition to the factors that you have ticked off, that level of education, let's say literacy, level of poverty, to say, hey, listen, I took this medicine the other day and it worked for me. And we have seen the consequences, for instance, in antibiotic resistance.
Sure.
Yeah, but more critically, why is it that we still find persons on the streets who are hawking medicines?
That is my point. That is my point. Why would that be? We're supposed to have laws, and these laws have to be implemented and enforced. Today, because of the size of the country, there are two regulatory agencies in pharmacy, NAFDAC and Pharmacies Council. But first is the extent of the law. For example, the pharmacy law today is called Pharmacies Council. Some people who sell medicine say they are not pharmacists, so the law should not cover them. That kind of funny argument. Okay, so government now says, okay, let's enlarge the law and make it a pharmacy law anywhere medicines, anything concerning medicines, to be dealt with. So that is one issue. The other issue is, like you said, education, enlightenment. Nigeria is not the only country that we have poor people. If you go to our neighboring countries, African countries, their level of literacy may be worse than ours. But you do not have availability of medicines the way you have them in the country. So is this unbridled open market transactions, intra-city, is so annoying. Police cannot arrest them. So what do? We now have to enlarge the inspectorate capacity of the Pharmacy Council and NAFDAC so that they can go and police the grounds and then also get a better cooperation with other agencies, like the way drugs get into the country. Sometimes they come, people put them in suitcases while they travel. Some, of course, pass through the ports and under the screen, under the radar, and nobody checks them. So we want to control drugs right from the way it gets into the country and ensures that my vision really is that at a point in history in this country, it may be within my term or thereafter, that every tablet, every millimeter of syrup, every ampoule, every suppository, every medication that comes into the country either through importation or through manufacturing and then consumed by the patient can be linked to a pharmacist. The pharmacist is the custodian. So we can hold him responsible and say, these drugs that came, where are they? But today, if you go to primary health centers, go to some hospitals, there are no pharmacies. Go to clinics, there are no pharmacies. So people just do whatever they like with medicines. Yeah. And the consequence is what we see today.
Okay, you've actually spoken on the laws, relevant laws,
yeah,
and regulatory frameworks or methodologies that are going to apply. But I'm also going to ask you about the strategies, to ensure that these laws are applied to do the job that you want. Yeah. Now, let's talk about other aspects of medicine, like trado medicine, for instance. And of course, it should also fall under the purview of pharmacists, of Misuse side of Nigeria, to ensure that all the drugs we take in the country are good. Now, how are you involving the trado medicine practitioners in all of this?
Well, I'm glad because, to be sincere to you, the genesis, the origin of pharmacists is plant medicine. Pharmacy started from the branch we call pharmacognosy, where you have the cinchona, the quinines, all they came from the back of trees. They were identified and extracted. But we found that if we continue to supply you quinine, for example, from the trees, we'll finish all the trees. So what we do in pharmacies, we discover a product from a plant origin, we take it to the lab and look at the chemical structure, and then go and do synthesis to provide it in a manner that will be cheap and available. Are you getting the point? So there's a high relationship between traditional medicine and pharmacy. And of course, there was a time when everything, this colonial and pre-colonial mentality made us think that everything African, everything Nigerian was bad. So everybody seemed to have moved fast from traditional medicine, but there's a return. In the schools of pharmacy, we have departments of pharmacognosy and pharmaceutical research. The government itself has come to terms with it. Today, you have a department of traditional medicine headed by a pharmacy. So we are now trying to put some control, which is why also NAFDAC, if you remember during the days of late Dora Akonyele, began to hem in the traditional medicine people and brought their medications under some control so that they are first registered and so that we can begin some form of regulation. Because everything that is not regulated is bound to be abused. And as I speak, even the medicines from plant origin are also prone to abuse and they can cause trouble because in a plant, that's one interesting thing. God is wonderful. The back of a plant can be dangerous. The fruits will be useful. So if you mix the two, you might just end up in counteracting one effect, trying to heal. So this is what science does. Science is able to separate the bad or dangerous part because maybe that was what God used to protect the plant. If he didn't leave that outside dangerous, they will eat it up. It's the survival of species.
You take the leaves, it could be helpful.
Helpful, but the roots.
Or you take the roots and then
they are not.
Like all those roots that carry about in the motor parks.
Exactly.
And so if you just take one shot,
I asked that question because some of my friends, including Kingsley, take Abo. What they call Abo.
I don't take Abo.
All those
I don't take
keep
Abo.
Drinking. Okay.
You take Abo.
I don't. I don't want to because.
No, there is some efficacy in some of the roots, especially those that have quinines and those that have, some kind of products, chemicals that are effective. But it is in the purview of the pharmacist, the pharmacognosist, or the pharmaceutical chemist to be able to diversify and be able to separate. That's what the institutes are doing now, to say this within this plant, this side is good, this one is not. And again, begin to bring it into some bit of provide dosage. Because part of the problem is that there is no dosage. They tell you 2 glasses of sometimes, and then they can also add too much alcohol, which would not denature and make the product inactive. Alcohol is a good opportunity to extract and lead to early absorption. But you must also control the quantity, otherwise it will neutralize the impact.
All right. Mazi Onwabowa, just before we let you go, because we have to get in, we have 2 other guests who will be coming in for a conversation.
Yeah.
From the sociological perspective, and considering the fact that the human development indices will always include the health standards of the people.
Exactly.
How much of a challenge do you foresee in ensuring that, look, Nigerians get to realize that drug misuse is perhaps one of the critical aspects in our healthcare delivery system?
Thank you, sir. This is the story. First, we want government to take the lead. For example, there's the pharmacy law, which is awaiting the president's signature, and I'm trusting God he will sign it, because I believe that this government wants the environment. They've set up presidential committees on drug abuse and all that. That gives an impression that they want this drug scene. So first is that government needs to play its role. Secondly is that the stakeholders, all those who operate within the environment, need to understand it. And you, media people, help us to project this information that drugs can harm as much as they can heal.
Thank you.
And what we want is that they should heal and not harm.
Thank you, Sam. It's been nice talking to you this morning on the drug misuse, abuse, and addiction. Thank you indeed for coming on Good Morning Nigeria. We've been speaking with Mazi Sam Uhuabunwa. He's the current president of the Pharmaceutical Society of Nigeria. Well, next for us will be...
by the way, it doesn't take a bowl like you.
No, it's good. Because I've been seeing you drinking something you don't disclose to anybody.